cry, O King of heaven, Jesus, hope to every heart. We are lost without your glory. We are lost without you, God. Be the fire that burns within us, flames of love that purify. Send your power and your salvation. Let us see your kingdom come.
Okay, ladies, you can keep enjoying those delicious breakfasts. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker this morning, Miss Kelli Atterbury. Her and her husband, Doug, have been married for 10 years. And look at those two beautiful girls, Allie and Emmy. She has lived in SoCal most of her life. She loves ministry and has worked in full-time ministry since graduating college. In the past, she's primarily worked in children's ministry, but right now, her and her husband, Doug, work in our Alliance and Abide ministries, which is singles and parents of teens. Ministry keeps her pretty busy, as you can see, and she loves spending time reading and going to the beach and just enjoying the outdoors and going for bike rides. So please welcome Kelli.
Sorry, I should have started walking a little sooner. Keep you guys waiting. Well, like you just heard, I have 2 little girls. So Allie's 7 and Emmy is 5, and I am loving this phase in my life. I love having little ones. How many of you guys have Frozen 2 on repeat all the time? That's my life right now. I love it. There's Pink, there's Princess, that's just the life we live right now, and I'm loving it. And I remember when Allie was first born, so many moms would tell me, oh, just soak it in, it goes so fast. And, you know, I haven't slept in 12 days and I'm exhausted. This is not going fast. And now I'm just starting to feel like it's picking up steam. My oldest is 7 and I cried bringing her to first grade. She lost a tooth down here this week and she asked me, is that the first tooth that ever came in? And I cried again. I was like, it was, you lost the first tooth. So it's just so fun to be a mom. And it's funny when I look back on my life, I've always ever only wanted to be a mom. And when I was in elementary school, I don't know why it was a thing, but I remember when I was little, it was like the cool thing if you wanted to be an astronaut when you grew up, or a doctor or whatever. And I just always wanted to be a mom. I wrote mommy on everything for school. It said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And as I got a little older, especially in college or being a young adult, I remember actually paying attention to other moms that I would see out and about, or in the mall or in Target. And I would pay attention to the things that I liked and the things that I didn't like, and maybe you guys can all resonate with me, but I remember seeing this one specific example of a mom in Target trying to appease her toddler who was just fully having a screaming fit. And I'm shopping for whatever I needed as a single person at that time and thinking to myself, my kids won't act like that, right? We've all had thoughts like that. Well, I will never forget the first time I got a taste of my own medicine. Allie was about 1, and at the time, my husband worked at Biola University. And my favorite thing about Doug working at Biola is that there was this awesome cafeteria where I didn't have to cook and it was cheap to eat. So I loved to join him there whenever I could. And one day I met him there, had Allie with me, and we decided to have lunch with his whole office, including his boss, big table of everyone. And of course, my sweet 1-year-old decides to start crying, which spiraled into a full-blown fit. And after a while, I was just horrified. It was, she was screaming. I couldn't hear myself think. No one was talking. I was clearly, disrupting this lunch. And so in a last-ditch effort to salvage what was left of this lunch, I pulled my phone out and I put Mickey Mouse on it and I handed it to her. And like a charm. She was quiet, she was still, and I felt this rush of relief, like, oh, thank God, she's quiet, And I felt so much better about everything until a college girl sitting close by, just loud enough so I could hear, pointed at my daughter, and I kid you not, said, "Look how sad that is. When I'm a mom, I'm not just gonna put a screen in front of my kid's face to shut them up." Yeah, that was fun. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. Like, you are 19 years old. You don't know anything about being a mother. It was terrible. I felt so disrespected, so just appalled that she would have the audacity to say something like that. But isn't it funny how much we value being respected? We all are hurt when somebody would dare to say something that is disrespectful. We don't like to be disrespected. It's something that we all value. And what's funny is that this girl, I don't even know who she is, has kind of lived in infamy in my mind as my example of what I don't want my girls to grow up to be. I want my girls to grow up to be respectful young women in college who do not say mean things to other moms. I want to teach them to respect. It's something that we all value, but have we ever really stopped and asked ourselves, where do our kids learn respect? When does it start? What's the best way to teach our kids respect? Hands down, the clearest, most effective way our kids will learn respect is by what they see in their home. They will learn to be respectful from you. There is no parenting book, there's no friendship, there's no TV program, no babysitter, no kids play date, nothing that will ever teach your kids to be more respectful than you will. Your voice is the loudest, most clearest thing they have to learn to be respectful. We all know that our kids mimic our behavior, and this starts pretty much right away, doesn't it? I mean, they're only a couple weeks old, and we're starting to make fools of ourselves with our facial expressions because they're copying us. They're starting to smile. They're doing things that they see us do. And we know that carries on when they start to learn how to talk. They learn how to speak because they're listening to us speak. We even see ourselves coming out there too, don't we? When they've got their little toy phone on their head and they're talking to their friends or they're calling Minnie or whoever it is. And we see our facial expressions, we see our hand movements, we start hearing little phrases that we use. They're watching us. They're watching us, and they're really watching us in relationships at home as well. This is where they're going to learn how to be respectful. So for most of us, we've got to stop and think, where are the relationships that are closest to us, that they are watching? What are they seeing the most? And that relationship is the other person that lives in our house with us. That's our husband. If we want to model respect and set the tone for respect for our kids to follow, then we've got to start with the relationship we have with our husband. If we want to set that example for them, and if we want to strengthen our marriage, we have to choose to be women who respect our husbands. If we're going to respect our husbands, we have to understand what respect is. So, to define respect, if you Google the word respect, this is what you'll find. To admire someone deeply as a result of their abilities, their qualities, or their achievements. That's pretty accurate, isn't it? That's what we see around us when we think about respect. Generally, we think of respect that is something that has to be earned. We don't generally naturally just respect someone based on their rank or role or whoever they are. We kind of want to see something good in their behavior. We want them to earn our respect. The respect we have for others is usually based on the way they act. And on the flip side, if somebody doesn't treat us respectfully, we're usually not inclined to respect them in return. Respect very much has become something that we are setting the tone for, something that we feel like we need to see that satisfies us. And when it comes right down to it, that standard for respect is something that we are really inundated with in our culture. We are told all the time that the number one person in your life that you should respect is yourself. that you should be that constant source of being respected. I was looking online this week, just feeling around, just seeing what people think about respect. And on Pinterest, I actually found, it said an inspirational board, quotes on respect. That sounded really interesting to me. So I clicked on this board, I started reading the quotes, and they were so good I had to share them with you. The first one was, truly powerful women don't explain why they want respect. They simply don't engage with those who will not give it to them. This one was my personal favorite, one I really would love for my children to emulate. When I get disrespected, I get disrespectful. I have a limit. When you reach it, I simply dismiss you from my life. It's that simple. Once someone disrespects me, they no longer exist to me. And this one I thought really summed it all up. The more you respect yourself, the happier you'll be. And you'll realize that you always deserve the best. Deep down, we know that this is an exhausting, futile mission, isn't it? To try to make others treat us and give us the respect that we feel we deserve is totally exhausting. Just being honest, even our barista at Starbucks doesn't give us the respect that we think we deserve, and we just gotta deal with it, right? This is a hard thing that we feel we have to be given what we think we deserve. We want people to earn our respect before we'll give it, and we want people to give us their respect. And on the cycle goes. But the Bible actually says something really different about respect. Far from a feeling that's elicited, it's a choice. It's a choice. Far from having to be earned, respect is something that we freely choose to give. Rather than fighting to be given the treatment that we feel we deserve, we employ our best efforts to give respect, regardless of the other person's response. We have to pursue a respectful attitude. To pursue something is really just to employ measures to accomplish a goal. This is an active word, it's not passive. And I think this is how we have to think about respect. It's going to be hard sometimes. It's probably not going to come naturally. We're going to have to work at this. But this is how we should think about what respect is. I want to write it this way for our first point. If we want to really model respect in our families and be a respectful wife, we need to pursue our husbands with honor. Pursue him with honor. This isn't a passive mindset. This is an active decision that we are going to do our best to be a respectful person. And one way that we do that is to defer to our husband. That word defer really just means to yield. And it just shows that we trust our husband. We're willing to lay ourselves down for his sake. We don't have to win every argument. We don't have to be right. We don't always have to share our opinion on every single thing. We can actually take a break from that I deserve, I need mindset and focus on him. I recently had a really practical experience in yielding to my husband. And it was last week, actually. We were driving to swimming lessons. And for all of you moms out there that have their kids in swim lessons, you know that is hands down the most expensive half an hour of your whole week, right? Swim lessons are very important. We get there on time. We don't waste minutes at swim lessons. And this last week, my husband was actually able to come with us. And I drive the girls every day. I know exactly which road to take with less traffic so we get to swim lessons on time. So as we're driving, my husband's driving, he's telling me about his day and he's in a great mood. He's smiling, he's happy. And I see that he is taking a different route. He is going a different way. And my whole body tenses up at this point, right? I'm realizing, oh no, he's gonna add 3 minutes to our commute. We're gonna be late to swim lessons. Now, at that moment, I had a choice. Either I could interrupt him to inform him that he is taking the alternate route, he can simply make a U-turn and I will direct him how to get to swim lessons, or I could be still and be quiet and let my husband drive the car the way he knows how on the roads he knows how, which is what I ended up doing. I decided to go with the latter, and you know what happened? We got to swim lessons, and we were, in fact, 2 minutes late, which was unfortunate, but it was just fine. It wasn't a big deal at all. And my husband and I actually had a really sweet conversation in the car that left us both feeling encouraged. It was easy. Sometimes respecting our husband can be as simple as just letting him make some decisions without being critiqued or questioned. Maybe it's something as simple as let him decide where you're going to go eat dinner. Let him make the choice. You don't always have to have an opinion. Maybe it's letting him decide what you're going to do, what the weekend plans are going to be. What do you want to do, honey? I'm up for whatever. Or maybe it's the bigger things. Letting him decide how we're going to use our tax return. Or maybe letting him decide what the next family car will be. Whatever it is, having that respect for our husbands and yielding to him shows that we value his opinion. We care about what he wants. We might even ask his advice sometimes. It's letting him be in control sometimes, showing with your actions and your words that you are willing to yield to him. You communicate trust in your husband. And respecting our husband really practically means putting his needs first. In our house, one of our favorite things to have for breakfast are protein smoothies. And my husband has actually ended up being the one that makes these smoothies more than I do because he puts way too much protein in the smoothies. So he makes them, it's great. But for the last 10 years, there's one thing I've noticed every single time that happens, and I know it will happen now with my husband without fail. He makes the smoothie, he pours my glass first, he fills it to the brim, and then he takes what's left. And even when it's clear in the blender that there's not enough for 2 glasses, he fills mine to the top, and then he takes what's left, every time. Even as something as little as a breakfast smoothie can communicate to your spouse, I value you, you're important, I'm putting you first. We can start doing little things like that for our husband that start communicating to him that we value him. This kind of respect is really contingent on us, not on him. We choose to be respectful with our actions and our words, whether or not we feel like he has earned that respect. It's a choice that we have to make, an active choice that we must make to respect our husbands. When we look for ways to respect our husband, one obvious way is the way we use our words. We all know that words have weight. They have the power to tear someone down. They have the power to build someone up. How you use your words will directly influence your marriage. How you use your words will directly influence your marriage. You can use your words to strengthen your husband, which will in turn strengthen your marriage. Our words reveal what's really going on in our hearts, don't they? Our words show us what we value and what we honor. We should use our words for good and not tearing people down. But we all know that words can be hurtful as well. Maybe some of you, even right now, are thinking of things that have been said to you that have stung, that are hurtful. And maybe some of those things that you are thinking of right now have come from the mouth of your husband, which makes this so much harder. But we have to remember, ladies, that regardless of how our husband has spoken to us, we have to make the choice to not respond the same way. Even if our husband has hurt us with our words, we have to really know that responding in the same way will not help. We have to choose to use our words to be encouraging and positive. A friend of mine told me recently, you can't get the words that you say back. She said they're like feathers flying in the wind. And I actually thought that was a clever way to think about our words. I almost imagine a pillow fight. Maybe you have delivered a blow to your husband and you didn't see too much of a fallout. There wasn't that much damage and you felt good getting it off your chest, saying, what you meant. Then maybe you do it again and again. And then maybe you wind up for that final blow. You deliver it to your husband, and before you know it, the pillow rips open and all these feathers are flying in the wind, and they are impossible to chase down and get them all back. Your words are like that. Your words are like that. You can't get back everything you say. Think really carefully about the words that you're going to speak to your husband before you speak them. A favorite Bible verse of mine is Titus 3:2, which says, "Speak evil of no one, avoid quarreling, be gentle, and show perfect courtesy to all people." This is such a practical verse because to speak evil of no one really just means don't tear anyone down with your words. As women, we should be people whose words do not harm our husbands. Speaking poorly of our husbands is a huge temptation for us as women, isn't it? Especially when we get together with our friends, it's pretty commonplace for women to complain about their husbands, to husband bash, so to speak. And it's something that we have to really be on guard against. When we get together with our friends, let's keep our husbands' failures and shortcomings to ourselves. We don't need to talk to our friends about how unsatisfied we are, about how we wish he would do more around the house, how we're not on the same page when it comes to discipline. Whatever it is, just keep your husband's failures to yourself. And if anything, we can actually maybe make our friends jealous by talking about our husbands positively. We love our husbands. Wouldn't that be such a switch? My favorite example of this is my friend Bethany, Pastor Mark's wife, for those of you guys that know her. And quick side plug, by the way, they have a podcast called Thriving Marriage. Maybe some of you guys have heard that. If you haven't, please listen. It's an incredible, real, just authentic, helpful tool for marriage where they're very honest and they talk about things like respecting your husband. But anyways, Bethany is a great example of this because one day she was talking about a couple years ago, she was out with her neighbors and the husband bashing started. They're all talking about things they don't like about their husband. And she kind of piped up saying something that not only she was happy to be married to Mark, but something she appreciated about him. It silenced the conversation and it was kind of turned things on their head a little bit. But you know what I love about this example is hearing Mark tell the story. You should see Mark tell others about this particular incident. Do you know what Bethany's actions did for him? It pumped him up. There's a man who felt respected by his wife and the way she used her words. We can do the same thing with our husbands. We also need to be very careful in terms of our words, not just the way we talk about our husband with our friends, but how we talk about our husband either directly to our children or in front of our children where we know that they can overhear us. It's really unhealthy for our children to hear their mothers speak poorly of their fathers. We don't need to do that, especially at the very least, we're trying to be an example for our kids of respectful speech, right? Let's not speak about our husbands in a way that would be disrespectful and tear our own example down in front of them. It's also worth mentioning that part of the way we communicate doesn't necessarily have to be with our words directly to another person. It could also be something on social media. Ladies, let's not post pictures of our husbands that are unflattering or put captions that are a little unkind or insinuate there's trouble in paradise or your marriage is struggling. And at the most, let's definitely not be women who video a story of ourselves venting all of our frustrations so that we can get all other fellow women out there to feel our pain. We've got to not do that. We've got to keep our words and our actions and even the way we use social media respectful. The way you communicate to your husband directly, the way you communicate about your husband to others, and the way you portray your husband online should all communicate respect. In addition to not tearing him down or speaking evil of him, we should avoid quarreling, avoid fighting. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? Let's try not to fight. We need to be humble enough to not have to win every argument. There might be times where you lay yourself down for your husband's sake, and that's okay. We need to be okay with that and try not to encourage fighting and quarreling. Are we being corrective or are we being encouraging with our words? A surefire way to diffuse arguments is the opposite. It's encouragement. It's finding something in our husband that we can affirm, something positive that we can thank him for or encourage him for directly. Usually, I would say our husbands don't want to fight us after we pay them a compliment, right? It's a great way to not encourage fighting. I was thinking about this in my own life pretty recently. I need to improve at affirming my husband. So the other day, he came home from work, and I was just telling him about our day, like I normally do. And part of that day was I picked up Allie from school, and then we went and had ice cream together. Not a huge deal. We literally just went to Yogurtland and came home. But I told him that day, I was like, you know what? Thank you for working, not only so that we could have a roof over our head, but so that I can take our kids to go get ice cream. That's awesome. They're making memories of going to get ice cream together with mom, and I know that's because you're working hard to make it happen. And I was actually kind of surprised at his response. He visibly sat up straighter, he smiled really big, and he just said, thank you. That makes me want to work hard for you. And I literally had said, thank you for letting us go to Yogurtland. It doesn't take much, does it, for us to find one thing for us to affirm in our husbands? Maybe it's just thanking him for working for us. Thank you for whatever it is. We can all find one thing, something to affirm in our husbands. Another great way to avoid fighting is to avoid mothering him. And this might be really hard for us. We are in that phase of life right now. We are up to our eyeballs in sleep schedules and, Doc McStuffins and everything else. And we're moms. That's what we're doing. Our whole life is consumed by being a mom right now. But we shouldn't let it become who we are as women. Be your child's mother. Yes, be a good mother. But be your husband's wife. Be your husband's wife. You don't have to be the enforcer. You don't have to be the mom to everyone, and it's a relief. Don't parent your husband. Pray for him. Build a camaraderie with him. We have to remember, honestly, we didn't marry a man who's perfect, right? When we said I do, we married a man who has flaws. He's not going to be perfect. He's going to make mistakes along the way, but so are you. You're not perfect either. There's only one who's perfect, and that's God. God is perfect, which I'm sure we've heard before. God is perfect, God is holy. But what that means is that he is completely without error or impurity in any possible way. He's morally flawless. He's completely whole. He lacks nothing. He doesn't need to grow in any possible capacity. He has arrived, so to speak. He is the perfect standard. That perfect standard that you will never, ever reach no matter how hard you try. He's the perfect standard that your husband will never reach no matter how hard he tries. On our own, we cannot be at that level. We can't meet God's perfect standard. And we actually have that in common with our husbands. Compared to God, neither of us measure up. We don't need to expect perfection out of our husband because we know he's not perfect, just like we're not perfect. Only God is. Compared to him, you both are on the same playing field, lower. Reflecting on God's holiness not only helps us kind of evaluate our own selves, but it helps us think about ourselves rightly. We need to be people who not only avoid using our words negatively, but are also really pushed to use our words and our actions positively to do what is right. We need to be gentle and to show perfect courtesy to all people. We have to choose to think clearly and be reasonable in our expectations of our husband. We have to choose to have a good attitude. And when our attitude and our demeanor are positive and respectful, our husband is far more likely to respond to us in love. That's how I want to write it down for our third point. Choose to have a positive attitude. As a mom, how many times do you think you say the word attitude a day? Just me? I'm the only mom that has to say, choose a better attitude every day. I have a 5-year-old who really, really likes to hear that. Oh, she's walking by right now. That's funny. There was one particular day this last week where I told my girls to go clean their rooms. Simple enough. It's easy. My youngest is 5. She knows how to clean her room. The second she heard those words, clean your room, it's almost comical. She stiffened her whole body out, she arched her back, and she opened her mouth as wide as she could get it, at which point I stopped her before she can complete the howl sound that was coming out, saying, stop it, stop having an attitude. And she looked at me and she goes, Mommy, I'm just stretching my mouth. It was hilarious. I was actually trying really hard not to laugh. I'm like, no, you're not stretching your mouth. I don't know where she heard that, probably from nowhere because it's ridiculous. You're not stretching your mouth. Go clean your room. It's amazing what our kids think we'll believe, isn't it? Oh, honey, you're stretching your mouth. Carry on. No, go clean your room. When we think about our kids, we really understand the power of a positive attitude, right? We are not quick to reward our kids when they are having a bad attitude. On the other hand, when we see our kids having a good attitude, like my older daughter who is in there cleaning her room happy and quiet, I want to reward that, right? When we see it in our kids, we recognize it right away. We know there's power in a good, positive attitude, and we want to reinforce that. But we need to really also take a look at our own selves, especially in regards to our relationship with our husbands. Do we have that kind of opinion of our own attitude in dealing with our husband? When we have an attitude that is positive and respectful, it prompts a response that is positive in our husbands. There have been books written on this and seminars done. It sounds oddly self-serving, but really God's ways do work here. When you choose to respect your husband more times than not, he will respond positively to you. You get to reap the benefits of your own actions here. If you work hard on giving your man respect, chances are he's going to respond to you in love. Does your husband know that you respect him? Does he know that? Does he know that you value him? Does he want to come home from work every day to you? Or does he dread the onslaught of stress that waits for him at the door? Have you told your husband that you do value him? Have you thanked him for the things that he does? Have you thanked him for working? I mean, he goes to work every day and brings home a paycheck. He helps buy the Cheerios you feed your kids, right? You could thank him for that. Have you ever thanked him for being a good dad or encouraged him in his efforts in that direction? Imagine the boost we could give our husbands if we did thank him for what he does. My husband and I have super sweet friends named Zach and Nicole, and Zach works in construction, and it's fun because he does some pretty cool projects, and so we always like to ask him, what are you working on? And the last time we hung out, he told us, it's actually getting hard at work, not because of the work itself, but because of the guys I work with. And we asked him, well, what do you mean? And he said, the wife bashing is brutal. These guys just tear their wives apart. And there was one gentleman in particular who would stay after hours, 3 or 4 hours after the job was done, and just hang out with his buddies. And Zach asked him, dude, why are you here? You're off, go home. And this gentleman said, I don't want to go home. Every time I go home, my wife starts yelling at me, there's stuff to be done, she's disappointed in me, she's angry all the time, I don't want to deal with it. Granted, there are always 2 sides to every story, and I know that. But think for just a minute. This is how this man described his wife. His wife. She's angry. I don't want to be around her. I love Zach's response. Zach says, I like going home to my wife. And it's funny because if you know Nicole, that makes perfect sense. You spend 5 minutes with Nicole and she will tell you how hard Zach works, how handsome Zach is, how smart Zach is. They just bought a house and she thanks Zach for buying the house and she thanks Zach for all the work he does. And sometimes it can almost feel awkward because she talks so much about how awesome Zach is. And I actually found this week on Instagram. This is so typical of Nicole. There's a picture of Zach walking. He's not even posing for a picture. It's literally like paparazzi style. Someone took a picture of Zach walking. And she said this: "We went on a hike with some friends. Here's a photo of Zach being handsome to document the occasion." It's not hard to see why Zach likes to come home from work, right? He loves Nicole, she loves him, and he gets this boost coming in the door. He knows that his wife loves him, she thanks him for what he does, and they like to be together. And on this beautiful cycle goes. It can be the same for us. We can choose to have that kind of attitude towards our husbands. We can choose that. This is what respect looks like in practice, isn't it? We choose to put him first. We choose to yield to him. We don't always have to fight for our own opinions. We choose to think and speak well of him. This is the kind of attitude that we can cultivate. We can work hard to have, and we can see positive results. Is it hard? Yeah. Is it going to feel awkward sometimes? Probably. But it's possible to see good things happen when we choose to have this kind of mindset. Is it ever too late? Is there ever a marriage that's just too far gone? No. You can make the choice. This is contingent completely on you. You can make the choice today, now, to start making new patterns, new habits. You can think about what your kids are watching and the way that you interact with your husband. You can think about the kind of wife you want to be. And you could choose to act this way regardless of the response your husband may or may not give. It's never too late to put into practice the things that we know will strengthen our marriage and strengthen the example our kids see us, or will see in us. One thing I'm always encouraged by is that God gives us grace in this. He knows that we're not perfect. He knows we need his help. And that always makes me feel better in my attempts to continue to grow in respect. I'm not perfect. I never will be. My husband is not perfect. I can't expect him to be. Only God is perfect. But really understanding that, really knowing that, helps me to have the right perspective of myself and to have right expectations of others. I need God's help to be able to respect my husband this way. I want to be a woman who's continually growing in respect. I never wanted to stop learning that. I never want to feel like I've arrived. And especially in regards to my husband, I know there's always more we can do, always more that I can do, especially to try to grow in this. And that's what my prayer is for us as well today, that we would be serious about this. A great way to implement change, or even just to continue in growth, is to make a plan, to actually have a practical plan, something that we're going to commit to do, no matter how hard, no matter how awkward it might feel, and to find accountability to make it happen. And this room is so unique, isn't it? Because as I look around right now, we all have something in common. We're all moms. We know the joys and the challenges of being a mom. We know also the joys and the challenges of being a wife. We have the opportunity to sit with people who really get it. We can really empathize with each other and be honest and real. And that's what I'm really hoping that today's group time will be, is a chance for us to be really real with each other. How can we actually grow in respect for our husband? If we make this commitment, if we really want to grow in respect, not only will our husbands thank us for it, but our kids will thank us for it. And we get to reap the benefit of being respectful women. I really appreciate you guys allowing me to join you today. And I really do pray that these group times will be beneficial, and then everyone can leave today actually excited and encouraged. This can happen. It is possible. It can happen. We can grow. It's with that I dismiss you to your groups now.